And then Neera Tanden does this. It's a genuine advice meant in the spirit of goodwill to tell any leader to stay 100 miles away from Piker who is morally repugnant and repellent to the median voter. Have you ever seen, with the exception of like Donald Trump, have you ever seen a figure in American politics get attacked this aggressively by the entirety of the right, the far right, and also centrist Democrats and establishment media? And it wasn't the far right that attacked Donald Trump, obviously. They were the only people who were on his side. I have never, maybe it's tough for me. It's tough for me to you know, take an unbiased, impartial position on this because I'm in the crosshairs myself. But it blows my fucking mind. It blows my mind how ruthless these people are. Last time I saw someone get this aggressively pursued, it was Bernie Sanders in 2016 and then Bernie Sanders in 2020. It was the far right, it was the right wing, and it was the entire establishment media on the liberal side as well that just would attack him endlessly. And Bernie Sanders was running. He was running for president, which, again, still unacceptable, the way that they came after him. But yeah, this is a disciplining operation. This is a disciplining operation. What we have to do is stay strong, understand exactly why they're doing this, and not yield and not bend to their desires.
All right, let's talk about another state that you raised, another big state, Michigan, the face-off between Democrat Abdul El-Sayed and former Congressman Mike Rogers. The NRSC continues to put out social media posts claiming that Abdul El-Sayed has quote-unquote terrorist ties, and yet there is no evidence that he has terrorist ties. Senator, should the NRSC stop running those ads?
Well, we know without question that he had family members who helped resource Osama bin Laden. We know without question that he campaigns with Piker, who said at one point that America deserved 9/11.
I mean, what can I say about this dude? He literally, this is a prominent Republican politician actively claiming that I'm a fucking terrorist. Like doubling down on the lie.
Stay focused on Al-Sayed, though. Let's stay focused on Al-Sayed and what he has said and believes in. There's no evidence.
Flock together.
Calling me a terrorist on TV, bro, on Meet the Press. It comes down to AIPAC, right? Yes, of course. It comes down to not just AIPAC, but the entire media apparatus that Israel deploys, like Israel sympathizers deploy in general. That's also part of the reason why Kristen Weller doesn't turn around and go, are you calling an American citizen who is a podcaster a terrorist? Because like the normal response to that is not just to turn around and be like, you know, let's focus on Abdul El-Sayed, because he is focusing on Abdul El-Sayed. He's saying Abdul El-Sayed has allegiances with terrorists. Okay. It's nutty. Like, dude, think about it this way. Charlie Kirk was linked up with every single Republican campaign. He was in the White House all the damn time. He was in the White House while talking about how Islam is a sword to the neck of America, right? And no one turned around and said, hey, this is kind of fucked up. Liberals didn't even do that. Liberals didn't even turn around and say, this is kind of fucked up that Charlie Kirk is doing this kind of thing, while also simultaneously hanging out with as many politicians, many prominent politicians, campaigning alongside them, throwing events. He was a part of the system. If someone were to turn around and say Charlie Kirk is a terrorist, I'm fairly certain that even liberal media would say, okay, that's a bridge too far. I don't think he's a terrorist. They regarded him as a conservative activist. He was a part of January 6th. He bussed people in during January 6th, and liberals still consistently considered him a conservative activist. But on the other side, if you're an anti-Zionist, if you're a prominent anti-Zionist and a prominent Republican, the head of the NRSC says, Hasan Piker is a terrorist, there's no moment of reflection, no moment of like, hey, hold on, what are you talking about? It's just Islamophobia. There's no other way to cover it. And I know the black folk in my audience understand exactly what's going on. Brown folk in my audience know exactly what's going on. Muslims in the audience know exactly what's going on. It's just, there's nothing you can do about it. These guys, this double standard is glaringly obvious. They're just not going to solve it. They're not going to solve it anytime soon, especially because currently it's unbelievably beneficial to churning out Hasbara, churning out Zionist propaganda, as the Israeli foreign minister has openly admitted that their goal now is not to get people to defend Israel necessarily, but to just really dial up the Islamophobia in the Western world, because they recognize that they have no success in getting people to defend Israel. It's not going to happen.
Birds of a feather flock together. The company you keep does matter. We all know that. That's something we learn in elementary school. Well, let's go to where he stands on the issues, though. There's a reason why even former Biden administration folks are joining with Republicans.
Yeah, they're talking about Michael LaRosa, right? They're using like Jill Biden's press secretary, who got fired, as a person. Like, there's noteworthy people on the Biden camp that are against Abdul al-Sayed. Like, this is what I mean. It's a fairly sophisticated smear operation against Abdul al-Sayed that they're deploying. And part of that revolves around getting the liberals to also play ball, touching on issues that they care about, at least liberals in positions of power. Liberals in the media are also very precious about their favorite emotional support apartheid state. So they can always use that as a way to bring people seemingly to their side, even if these people are not a representative enough force, right, amongst the masses.
Republicans and hosting fundraisers throughout Michigan to support Mike Rogers. Here's one of the reasons why. We've got a candidate in Abdul el-Sayed who wants to abolish ICE. He wants to defund the police. Here's a candidate so radical that even Democrats in Michigan are joining forces for the first time with Republicans to elect Mike Rogers.
Just to be very clear, there is no evidence that al-Sayed supports any terrorist organization.
Yeah, birds of a feather. Who was Epstein's best friend? Fact is, Republicans protect and support pedophiles. With that, they lost every ounce of credibility. Tim Scott just got through endorsing the lying, cheating, thieving, immoral Ken Paxton, so maybe he's right about birds of a feather. What Welker should have mentioned, on day one of his presidency, Trump pardoned hundreds of domestic terrorists, so fuck off. Piker has no terrorist ties, but it is true that the Trump regime is a fascist and by far the most politically motivated. Violence is on the right. So it's actually Trump and Mike Rogers and Tim Scott, for that matter, with fascist and terrorist ties. Yeah, Piker's not a terrorist either. What idiots. These people are monsters. They're monsters. And they're losing. But until we win, they're just going to keep chirping. Okay? Until we win, they are going to try to do their very best. Mehdi Hasan also had another good point about this. Democrats on my timeline claiming the party should distance from Hasan Piker because he was singing a song mocking Charlie Kirk. But here's Bill Maher and a New York Times reporter joking about the death of Jason Arday, and the audience are laughing. Will Dems boycott Maher now? Of course they won't, because they agree. By the way, it's quite instructive that Islamophobia doesn't just stop. Like, that kind of racism, that kind of bigotry never stays with just Muslims, right? Because those people are also anti-black too. They're also anti-black as well. These guys are never just against Muslims, just like they're never just against transgender people, right? It's never just one kind of bigotry that they stick to. It's all of the bigotry. So for a lot of people who think, oh, well, we can find allegiances here with these guys because they also hate Muslims or they're also pro-Israel. If you think that you're not next on the chopping block, you're wrong. It never just stays with Muslims. That's why I can't comprehend it when I see like I can't comprehend it when I see people who themselves are from a minority background that also entertain Islamophobia, things like that. These people hate you too, big dog. Fuck you mean?
A majority of the Democrats' far-left Senate nominees do not support Minority Leader Chuck Schumer. There's speculation AOC could challenge Schumer in the 2028 primaries. But now bettors are predicting she may be the Democrats' presidential nominee. So the DSA may turn to radical New York City Council member AOC to oust Schumer. He's forcefully criticized the Minority Leader, has the support of Hasan Piker, and is no stranger to posting far-left cringe on social media.
Did you know that some of Bed-Stuy and Crown Heights streets are named after slave owners? Well, I'm on a mission to change that.
Do you love the snow? Do you have a zest for manual labor and being cold?
I gotta get out of New York City. Wait, I'm not wealthy, nor are the wealthy leaving New York City.
All right, David, we're glad to have you on the show to get your economic perspective and your overall perspective on all of this and these DSA socialist candidates. You know, a lot of them seem to be birthed right here in New York City, as we're seeing with Mamdani and many others, but it's not isolated to New York City, and it's not isolated to blue cities or blue states either. And as much as they want to come for conservatives and President Trump, it seems like the first person on their target list is Chuck Schumer and perhaps Hakeem Jeffries.
Let's talk about Chuck Schumer first, because I'm going to use some fancy words, but his obsequiousness, his unctuousness, his toe-curling, painful fawning of El Sayed the other day was just extraordinary. I wish we could have put that up, but he was just like, I mean, he knows El Sayed hates him. He knows I know El Sayed says he's not DSA, but he essentially is. He follows all of their policies. He wants to rip up the Constitution, et cetera, just like the rest of them. But for him to say how wonderful El Sayed is, knowing that El Sayed would love it if he ends his period in the Senate, at least his period as the leader in the Senate. So he's screwed either way. If the DAS wins, they're going to kick him out as the leader, form a majority of Democrats to kick him out as the leader. And if they lose in November, he'll still be screwed because of the fact that he's essentially been so weak and appeasing of this group. Look at Jared Moskowitz, by the way, the guy who won against Larkin, the socialist who was running in Florida. Now, granted, the district did not favor Larkin as some districts did, and there was a DSA person who won in a district that was more radical. Angie, we'll talk about her later. But the point is that Moskowitz is a Democrat, moderate Democrat, Jewish moderate Democrat who stuck to his guns, has a bit of a backbone, wasn't afraid of the DSA, gave them hell, made it very clear that they in no way are fit for office with all of the things that they've and he won. He won by almost 2-1. You guys did a brilliant job, by the way, last week in talking to Larkin, the guy that Moskowitz won against. You really spelled out very clearly exactly how radical he was. Something that Schumer had an opportunity to do. He didn't do it. Moskowitz did. Moskowitz won, and I think Schumer is going to lose.
Well, that's the discussion that's going to be had in the Democrat Party. I'd love to be on a fly on the wall for those discussions. The Democrats are probably missing the leadership of Nancy Pelosi, I would assume. She was able to keep the squad at bay to some extent.
It was a different time.
It was a different time, but she also ruled with an iron fist, and you don't have that so much on the Democrat side anymore. Joey, in talking about these socialist candidates, and Angie Nixon is one that you alluded to here, when you see them in interviews, not only are they trying to moderate themselves, which is probably wise, but if you dig just a little bit deeper, you take a couple layers off that onion, when questioned about their deeply held convictions, it kind of falls apart under even light scrutiny.
Yeah, the thing is, the candidates try to moderate themselves, but the people that they say represent their policy position and platform, the leaders in the DSA movement, don't moderate themselves at all. I mean, look at Hasan Piker. I mean, that's an easy one, but I can't remember her name. I think it was the vice chair of the party that came on the network last week and made a fool of herself on a couple of different shows. So, you know, if you join the DSA, then when those people go and talk, they're representing your policy positions. Now, you can argue nuance, but things like, you know, abolishing the Senate, I mean, that's a policy position. There's no nuance to that. What I find interesting, if you look at the list of those that are running for Senate in competitive states that say they would get rid of Schumer versus the ones that Democrats say Schumer helped recruit, you've got Peggy Flanagan in Minnesota, El Sayed in Michigan, Troy Jackson in Maine. You know, that's kind of an even split there, with maybe the Maine being kind of the one way or the other. But I think Michigan, yeah, I mean, you're looking at probably one that leans Republican, one that leans blue, and one that may be more of a toss-up. But then you look at who Schumer has endorsed and brought in. You got Roy Cooper in North Carolina, Sherrod Brown in Ohio, Josh Turek in Iowa. All three of them have a really good chance to win, but it's a competitive state. It's a toss-up. And then you've got Peltola there in Alaska, and you would hope that Sullivan can hang on to it, but you don't know. And so what I mean by that is you might have an actual scorecard that says whether Schumer has earned the right to be the Senate majority or.
Yeah. None of that looks good for Republicans, by the way. I love that they talk about like Schumer's potential, Schumer's future in the party and shit. But we're talking about states that were never in play, big dog. And I love how much like these guys are invested in the inter-party affairs that they're not even considering their party.
Minority leader at the end of this based on how those candidates do. The battle lines have essentially been drawn.
Alicia, what part does social media play in this? Because if you look at these candidates that are running and winning, that are getting at least support from Democrats, they all have an impressive social media presence and following. Has it become a time in the Democrat Party where your follower count and your engagement algorithm actually matter more than your track record or even your fundraising?
Well, the DSA is taking up all the oxygen in the room for Democrats, and they can't get a word in edgewise when it comes to any semblance of logic that they can cobble together, because they're still trying to figure out in 2026 who they are after they got stomped on in 2024. So, yes, I think social media plays a very large part. I feel like the Democrats are, but they're fighting amongst themselves. The DSA is not the Democratic Party. There are members of the Democratic Party who say that, but then there's some of them are scared to say that out loud. So it's this like big mess that they're still trying to figure out as they're going to start heading into 2028. I think it's a huge problem. But I'm also, to pick up on something Joey said, when we're talking about the DSA and statewide races, they are not a proven entity just yet. And what that means for the Senate will be more important, because if Chuck Schumer is able to pull some people across the line and that number outscores the DSA in any significant way, that will matter.
I think the one thing we know is that the Democrat Party is going to continue to go to the left. Whether the DSA takes it over in the next couple years or not, they're going to have to move further to the left to appease this grassroots DSA socialist communist hybrid that they've created.
I don't think they know who they want to be. They want to be who's popular, and whatever that means, then they're willing to do it. And so,
Alicia, I would say that they know exactly who they want to be. They just don't want to be honest about it.
Yeah, communism is popular, I guess. Isn't that what this implies, by the way? Also, it is very funny that these guys are now running around and complaining. These guys are now running around and complaining that the DNC doesn't have the same level of influence over the base of support. Like, you're a Republican media operation. Why do you care about whether the DNC has lost its mojo or not? Like, they're defending Chuck Schumer's honor. It's very funny.
Which is why I always say at least the DSA candidates tell you exactly what they want to do, because I think if a lot of these Democrats were honest, they want mostly the exact same things down the list. They're just not brave enough to say it out loud.
By the way, that list also includes, we should forget, getting rid of the military, getting rid of the defense of the United States, defund the Pentagon. I mean, you know, come on, folks. It's not just defund the police. Defund America. That's their platform. Defund
America, but fund those at the top, right? And not those at the top that they often say that they're against. Those at the top is in the reigning class. Yeah. That's how socialism and communism works. All right.
Be sure to like and subscribe for all the Fox News latest on YouTube.
I love that their argument always is like, the argument always turns into, you know, what they want to do is basically, and then they end up describing the current existing system. It's always like that. Oh, look at these fucking DSA goons. They want to do communism, which, as everybody knows, is when the super wealthy make more money and the poor get fucked over. And it's like, yeah, that's the current situation, man. That's kind of the reason why these guys are growing in popularity, don't you think? Yeah, these guys are trying to do insert current problem. Oh, these socialists, what they're trying to do is basically make sure that every home in the country is owned by venture capital. That's classic socialism.
Welcome back. Joining me now is Democratic Senator Chris Van Hollen of Maryland. Senator Van Hollen, welcome back to Meet the Press.
Kristen, great to be with you.
It's great to have you here in person. Thank you so much. Let's dive into the primaries. Angie Nixon, a member of the Democratic Socialists of America, scored an upset win in Florida, as you know. This week, it comes after progressive Abdul al-Sayed, who we were just talking about, narrowly won in Michigan. You, of course, used to run the Democratic Senate campaign arm. Do you believe Democrats are making an already tough Senate map more difficult by electing candidates who are part of the left wing?
No, I don't. First of all, Democrats are absolutely united in recognizing that President Trump is a threat to our economy and a threat to our democracy. What you're seeing is a churning, a debate within the Democratic Party that's more focused on what the Democratic Party needs to stand for in 2028. And I don't think this is left versus right. I think this is the top 1% that is rigging the economy in their favor at the expense of everybody else. So these are economic populists. And the debate within the Democratic Party is going to be healthy going forward. In this midterm, it's a referendum on Donald Trump. I listened to Senator Scott. He wanted to talk about Joe Biden. He did not want to talk about Trump. He talked about affordability. Let's remind people that Donald Trump said that the affordability crisis was, quote, a hoax, and broke his promise to focus on bringing down prices and keep us out of wars. He's done the opposite.
Well, let's delve a little deeper into this debate that you referenced inside the Democratic Party. Florida Congressman Jared Moskowitz fended off a DSA-backed challenger in his district, and he's taking a very different view of Democratic Socialists of America. Here's what he said about DSA members likely to join Congress.
It's so funny to go to Chris Van Hollen, who is a very well-respected senator, and then being like, hey, what do you think about this like 2-term incumbent in one of the more conservative districts in the fucking country that will never vote for a Democrat? Like, Chris Van Hollen has a lot more power within the fucking Democratic Party than Jared Moskowitz does. The fact that you're like, you might as well bring me up to Chris Van Hollen than fucking Jared Moskowitz, because neither of us are relevant in the power center of the Democratic Party, okay?
Next year, he writes, quote, they're anti-American at their core. People who have said anti-American things and have said things that are pro-Russia and pro-China. Should they really get a security clearance, he asks. Do you think the Democratic Socialists have a place in the Democratic Party, Senator?
Yes, they do, as part of the debate. And in this upcoming election, candidates can be very clear about where they strongly disagree with the DSA, which is probably on most issues. But they can also talk about their own plans. What? So, I'm not afraid of debate. I think that those in the Democratic Party who are afraid of a healthy debate are missing the point, because voters, including Democratic voters, they don't want to simply return to the pre-Trump status quo. They want Democrats who are going to stand for something. And I can strongly disagree with one set of Democrats. But I think that debate is healthy.
Well, okay, talking about the debate, let's talk about the DSA platform. It calls for, in part, replacing the president and Supreme Court with an executive and judiciary chosen by and subordinate to Congress, and, quote, to abolish the Senate, the chamber, of course, in which you serve. Do those ideas go too far for you?
Yes, of course they do for me. And I think a lot of the folks who are running, regardless of where they are on the Democratic spectrum, have rejected those ideas. And so I think when you look at the Democratic Party right now, you're looking at a party that, again, is incredibly united when it comes to making sure we're out there, standing up for working people. We need to end this war in Iran, which is driving up prices. And the reason that Senator Scott didn't want to talk about this election and the issues and didn't want to talk about Trump's record is because you have a rubber stamp Republican.
I wish that we were a little bit more bold. Like, trying to move in the direction of parliamentary democracy is not that fucking scary. You know what I mean? Like, even if you disagree with it, even if you disagree with it and you're a senator, obviously you're gonna disagree with it because you're a fucking senator. You can understand where these people are coming from, and you can be like, look, I don't agree with these people. But plenty of other countries are run in this exact same way. Plenty of our allies operate with this form of governance, and it works well for them. It could work for us. It could not work for us, but that's what the conversation is about. So I'm not going to sit here and immediately decry the DSA for being a scary, terrifying institution, or its ideas as like outright dangerous, especially when some of those ideas that they are pushing for exist elsewhere, you know?
Senate and rubber stamp Republican candidates who simply want to do Donald Trump's bidding.
And very quickly, would you accept an endorsement by the DSA?
I would not. I'm not going to sort of look into all these endorsements. I'm not going to reject an endorsement by certain individuals at the DSA, but I'm certainly not seeking the endorsement from the DSA. And I do think, Kristen, that this whole debate is an effort by Republicans, as you heard from Senator Scott, to try to reduce, the turnout for Democrats. I don't think it's going to work, because at the end of the day, what unites Democrats is economic populism.
I don't believe they care about having a Senate as much as they pretend to. Is there anyone in the history of the U.S. who went, I'm glad we don't have a parliamentary democracy, maybe aside from the Republicans? I don't think so. Yeah, I'm going to be honest. I just don't care about it one way or another. Like, I genuinely don't. It's not my main concern at all. No disrespect to DSA. It's nowhere near in my top priorities. I'll never, like, argue against it, because I think it's fine. It's just not, I don't know, there's like people getting ripped up, people getting ripped away from their fucking families, tens of thousands of people dying because they don't have health care. And I know DSA cares about those things, to be fair. Like, I know those are the top level concerns with DSA as well. It's part of the reason why they constantly fucking lean into this stuff that's more future focused. And I don't think DSA should shy away from long-term goals that they have. Because the Democratic Socialists of America is not a Democratic Party PR operation. And if that was what they're doing, if DSA was like only focusing on election victories, then it would turn into that. It would be just that. So I think the current balance of the DSA, having DSA right that cares about elections, having DSA left that cares about advancing socialism beyond simply immediate election victories, that's a good balance to strike. But yeah, even as like demanding broader structural changes, I would say like make the Supreme Court have 1,000 justices. You know what I mean? Look, I got some radical ideas. Yeah, 99 Supreme Court justices. Classic one, the gauntlet. Right? Y'all remember the gauntlet? That's a good one, right? If any candidate in any district is at a net negative approval rating, the people elect a champion to engage in the act of fisticuff against the elected representative. This is a process known as the gauntlet. I've been a major advocate for this. I feel like now that I have a lot more attention from the national media, I think it's time for me to put forth my DSA style program, platform. Yeah. Like immediately, you know, John Fetterman would be a part of the gauntlet. And we hosted in front of the White House? No, my argument was we hosted on the Senate floor, or the floor of the House, the House of Representatives, like depending. Like I would put you know how they have the floor? I would create a process in which there's like a specific. I would create a specific ring. And yes, I would, of course, film it on C-SPAN. That would also bring a lot more attention to politics and a lot more attention to C-SPAN.
Populism, standing up for working people.
Well, one of the big issues that has emerged, I was talking about this with Senator Scott as well, data centers.
Cowards don't want it to happen. It's fucked up.
There's obviously a major issue in battleground.
A majority of the Democrats' far left Senate nominees.
Wait, what the fuck? Yeah.